Hi guys. Hello. As I mentioned, so my name is Timothy Armoo and I'm CEO of Fanbytes. And today I'm going to talk to you guys about this. 3 Snapchat hacks to drive a ton of downloads. Previously the title was a shit ton of downloads, but I wasn't sure how people would react to the swearing, but now that I've said it's kind of awkward, isn't it? Anyway, but beforehand, going to tell you guys a bit about Fanbytes, what we do and how we operate. So at Fanbytes, so businesses either call us the geeks reinventing video advertising. Now that seems very huge and esoteric, etc. But what do we actually do? And our key thing is we help brands to reach millennials on Snapchat. And I'll tell you a bit about how we actually do that. It's across these 2 things, content and distribution. So when we looked out into the marketplace, what we realized was 2 of the biggest obstacles for brands being able to reach younger people on Snapchat was content and distribution. On the content front, we found that brands either didn't have the resources to create actual ads for Snapchat because it was a completely different thing. Vertical video, focus on this different, really youthy audience. How do you actually create content for that at scale? And the second thing, apart from the resources, was this whole idea here of actually understanding how to engage with that audience. So it was a lack of resources and a lack of knowledge as well. And so what then would happen is one of these 2 things. On the first front, you have brands who don't have the resources creating really amateur content. And that's an example here that I've shown you onto the right. On the left, you have people who don't understand really how to engage with the audiences. So even though they can create these ads, all they do is repurpose the ads from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TV, and you end up having something that's repurposed and too polished. And so the second problem we set out to solve was a distribution problem. How many of you guys actually have Snapchat here by show of hands? Okay, cool. A fair few, great. So everyone is very familiar with the ad format on Snap. It kind of shows up in between your friends' stories. So here's actually a clear example of someone from Fanbytes. In their story, they're watching this, beauty and makeup influencer, and they're about to go to their friend's story, and then randomly an ad showing Jeremy Clarkson's face just shows up. And as you can tell, it has no context, it has no relevance, and it's definitely not targeted. And because of this, because it's just intrusive, people just skip the ads really quickly. How many of you guys just skip an ad ASAP? Ton of hands here, right? And it leads to this stat, right? More than 60% of Snapchat users skip ads on the platform. So we set out to solve those problems, and on the content side of things, what we have done is we realized that maybe not every brand has the resources to have their own production studio, and also they don't have the knowledge. So what we did was we engaged and we created a network of the most creative Snapchat storytellers on the planet. These are 17 to 21-year-olds who can create branded ads for Snapchat, optimized for Snapchat on demand. And the great thing is not only are these guys on demand, but also they're all young, so they really understand what the audience wants. And the second thing that we did was we then amassed a network of the most engaged influencers on the planet. Because to us, the reason why people skipped was because there was no context and there was no relevance. So if we can add influencers and use their brand equity and their brand advocacy and tie them in with a brand, that can create something really interesting. We use that to pioneer our signature ad format called our sandwich ad, where we have built these ads by our design network, programmatically inserted into influencer stories. They talk about the ad, and that takes something from being a very disruptive experience, which causes things like this, and actually makes it a shared experience between an influencer, a brand, and the user. And just a really brief history about us. We started this at the start of last year. We've been very fortunate enough to see all these world's biggest brands here be able to partner up with us. And also, you may have seen us in a press mention or 2. Everyone from Forbes, Business Insider, even the Standard Huffington Post have featured us. So that's kind of about what we do as a company. So now the stuff that you actually came for, right? 3 Snapchat hacks to drive a ton of downloads. These are all things that we as a company have used to help brands drive a ton of downloads. And in this, how I'm going to structure this is very simple. I'm going to tell you a principle that we've used. I'm going to show you an example of how we used it, because I think it's vitally important that I actually show you how we used it, rather than, hey, you can do this, or something which is completely out of your reach. I think the worst presentations are when someone comes in and says, we did this, but it cost 50,000. And you're like, yeah, fuck you. I'm never going to have 50,000 to just spend on a campaign. So, the first thing, 3 Snapchat hacks to drive a ton of downloads. And the first thing is this, interactivity wins, right? So a lot of the things on Snapchat, very quick, very short. And for so long, what brands do is they say, I'm going to create an ad, it's going to be all about me, and I'm just going to shove it in people's faces. But really, Snapchat and its playfulness with the lenses and the filters, it really takes advantage of you being interactive with a brand. So an example of how we actually did this is with this app here. By the way, all the examples here, although we work with a lot of these kind of like larger brands, I'm gonna move here so you can see it. Oh, actually, is it better I sit here? Is this better? Can you see it? Okay, cool. Actually, now I realize it's awkward, I'm gonna say it. So, People.io are an app who basically, they reward you for taking ownership of your data. So you plug in, your email address, Facebook, etc., and every new data source, they kind of reward you from brands. It's not the most, it's not the most interesting thing in the world. Kind of awkward because the founder is actually a good friend of mine, so if he hears this, he'll be quite disappointed. Anyway, so People.io, right? So that's what they do. Now, they could have easily just been like, oh, we're People.io, download our app. But this idea of using interactivity and actually getting people to engage with them and actually engage in a back and forth conversation actually helped them quite a bit. And the next example I'm going to show you is actually an example of how they use our sandwich ad format and where this idea of interactivity comes in. Bear in mind, again, this app just rewards you for plugging in your data. It's not super exciting, but the results suggest otherwise. It should play.
Guys, I want to tell you about an app called People.io, which pays you for answering questions. I've already made £10 and it's completely safe. You should all go download it. Literally getting addicted to this app already, and I've already earned rewards for Amazon and iTunes. If you screenshot the next snap, you can download it yourself, which you definitely should. It's good.
And then people could just like screenshot this and then they went to the app. So that was the whole idea behind it. It was this whole idea of like interactivity, etc. And for us, it was this idea of, we could just easily say, hey, People.io, download it, but actually just this added layer of interactivity and saying, I've already won this at Amazon, check this out, eventually led to some pretty good results. You see that there? In 24 hours, People.io became the #1 trending app in the whole of the UK. And not only that, but the founder wrote an excellent post on LinkedIn about how they became the #1 trending app in the UK and #4 in lifestyle, and also trending in the Play Store. And all this comes from this idea of saying it's not about you guys, especially on Snapchat, which is super playful, super interactive, really creates opportunities for your brands, really creates opportunities for your users to actually engage. The next tip here is tapping into culture. This, to me, is one of the most important things here. Snapchat is a very young audience, right? And these guys grew up with memes and GIFs and just these random expressions of pop culture. And really, one of the things here that I find that brands do is they alienate themselves from the actual cultural moments. Again, all they do is talk about themselves and not really decide how they can fit themselves into cultural moments. And so this principle here, also bear in mind, every single thing I've said here doesn't need a huge budget. I'm talking about things like be interactive. I'm talking about things like tapping into culture. These are not things that are only reserved for the Supercells of the world or the Clash of Clans of the world, right? These are things which are just very simple, because I'm aware that the audience here is like an indie developer audience, but also, you guys don't have like millions of budget. So this, I'm trying to make sure it's like a really obvious way that you guys can actually use. Now, tapping into culture here, we did this example with an app called Laugh. So now, how many of you guys have heard of 9gag? Right, so, just these for those who haven't heard of 9gag, is a community where people share like memes and GIFs, etc. And some of the most horrible memes on the internet have been formed from 9gag. And here, Laughs is essentially an app which is a community of these people who share these funny things. And when Laughs came to us, they said, hey, we'd like to be able to, just drive downloads. Can you just tell people about Laughs? And I said, well, actually, that's quite boring, right? Just, hey, here's laughs, yay, download, right? If we're able to actually fit you guys into some of the moments of pop culture which can be interesting, perhaps then people would think about that moment, then think about laughs as well. Because like fundamentally, they could get, you know, their feels from Twitter, from 9gag, from Imgur. So what we did here, and I'm going to show you the video here. What we did here was our crowdsourced design network said, what are some of the really interesting like cultural moments? Now we know The Office. How many of you guys know The Office? So everyone recognizes that guy. He was one of the, you know, my favorite character from The Office, but also they included memes and things from pop culture. Like this meme here is a really famous meme of this baby, you know, stop, I'm gonna pee. And they were able to fit laughs into that. And an example will then follow here. Right, so again, very quick, 10 seconds, but if you notice in all these moments, they were passing in things from these cultural memes and things which people already identify with. And from the campaign, they were able to see, you know, 33,000 people go to their app store, which resulted in them, I think, if I'm honest, I know, maybe they're not here, so I can actually say their budget. I think they spent 3K, and this is what they got. This is a direct email actually from the founder. Hi, Brett. Hi, Brett. Brett is here. Where's Brett? That's Brett. Brett's our campaign manager. Yay to Brett. Everyone say hi, Brett. Hi, Brett. There you go. Sweet. He goes, hi, Brett. Thanks to you, the campaign was amazing, the results were brilliant. We managed to get 8.2K downloads, and this happened within a day. And they spent 3K with that, which means incredibly low CPIs, but it all stems back to this idea of them tapping into culture. They didn't just go out and say, hey, we're lost, but rather they decided to fit themselves into a cultural moment, causing people to then go ahead to the site and causing people to download. And the last thing here is, this seems very esoteric, but actually it's not. Remember the human. You know, it sounds like really, oh, remember your father or something like that, right? But this is the whole idea that when you open Snapchat, for example, right, it's really personable. It opens up and it's to your face. And the reason why is because Snapchat made this big deal about being human. It's all about the people. It's all about the people. It's not like perhaps, you know, Facebook or Instagram where it's a lot of like aspirational stuff, especially on Instagram. It's like my friend takes a picture in Bali and it's like, wish you were here. And like, well, I'm not fucking here, innit? Like, I'm in London, right? I'm working. But this idea of Snapchat being a place where you can just share your most personable moments is not only just about the app, but it's also about how brands can actually use those moments. So again, I'm going to give another example, Plato. Plato, a social gaming app. They have a bunch of different apps in them, like chess, pool, a bunch of like stuff like that, social gaming app, and they came to us and they said, hey, again, we'd like to drive downloads. And we said, actually, listen, like, if you just wanted like basic downloads, right, just installs, you can go anywhere for installs, right? That's not really like that interesting. What you want is like high quality installs. And not only that, but you also want to actually do something which taps into an emotional feeling with people. Because if you don't tap into the emotion, what you basically find is a ton of people download your app, and then afterwards the retention just drops. Because maybe it's like a burst campaign that you did, or you know, you paid a bunch of people somewhere to just do really boring banner ads or incentivize installs or something like that. So yeah, it looks great because you can go to your investors and say, hey, we got, you know, 100,000 installs. But then you see them on the 10th day, hey, we have no installs, right? Because people have just completely just forgot that really what causes retention is not just like, oh, this is a cool app, but rather is forming an emotional connection with your users so unprompted they can keep using your app. So Plato came to us and said, hey, we like to do that. And what we said, listen, we know your app is all around social gaming. It's all around being able to play chess and snakes and ladders with all your friends. Rather than, again, just saying, hey, here's Plato, what our design network, so our design network created was a 10-second snap which is around you challenging your friends on those games. So if I'm on Snapchat, through our influencer format, you see an influencer talking about challenging your friends, but you also then see the ad saying, hey, you, challenge your friends. And instantly it changes the dialogue from just, hey, here's Plato, download us, to actually, you're going to challenge your friends, and you're going to use Plato to do that, and you're not only going to do it now, but you're also going to do it in a week's time, in a week's time, in a week's time, because challenging your friends and being better than them is an emotional connection. So here I'm going to show an example of it. Oh, it didn't play. What's up with it? There's video here. There you go. See, just something as like simple as that, right? But the moment you saw that, even me, I've seen that like loads of times, but the moment I saw that, I was like, man, I want to play Brett in that game, right? I want to smash Brett in that game. But what happened there, what happened again is the results again, as you see, not only did they get 29,000 people to go to the site, but also you see a completion rate of 100%. 100% of the people who saw the ad completed it. Because to them, it wasn't just this is a boring ad, it was to them, this is actually something which is a emotional feeling for me. And again, I think they generated CPIs of about 32p, and this again is just a quote. Again, I'm really big on just showing you the quotes so that people don't come here and say, you're just chatting shit, right? I want you to actually see directly, like this is stuff from actual marketing managers, CEOs like yourselves, because I think there's a lot of charlatans in this world. But anyway, as you can see, better than organic quality users had a phenomenal CPI. And the reason why this was the case is because these users had an emotional connection, and therefore they were the highest retained users. And so that's it. That there are the 3 hacks I think that as mobile app developers we could all use in order to really win on Snapchat. Now these 3 hacks are actually taken from this ebook that we created, 5 Snapchat hacks every marketer should know. That's something that we can share afterwards. But for anyone here who is actually interested in learning more about the ebook, if you just wanted to learn more, it'd be great. If you want to email us, pgc@fanbytes.co.uk. If you use the subject line, need me some downloads, you would get a free creative and strategy session, just for us to just figure out what the hell you could do better to win on Snapchat. And thank you very much. I have 30 seconds. Do we enter into Q&A, or do you guys applaud then I enter into Q&A? Okay, go. 1, 2, 3, go! Thank you. Sweet.
Do you guys? Why are you shouting? Do you guys want to make a question? See, they are all so shy today. I don't know what happens with them.
Yeah. Hey, what's up?
Go ahead.
So you got a 100% completion rate.
Yeah.
And your click-through rate was 1.1%.
Yeah.
If I saw correctly. Just off the top of your head, any like quick ideas on how you'd push for a higher click-through rate?
So I think another thing, this was like the first, I think, campaign we did with them, but also if you look here, so they got 3.07 million views in terms of the total views they got. So if 1% of like 3 million people go there, that's kind of good. But you know, we've kind of improved that in like subsequent campaigns, because then instead of using just this, remember the human, we just decided to use tap into culture and interactivity. Just use everything, and by using everything that caused click-through rate to go up. If anyone wants to kind of talk a bit further, as you can see, we have a logo here. It's an otter. A bunch of people here are also wearing otters, so those are all people that you can chat to if you want to learn more. Cool?
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.